she clenched Pierre by the throat for a photo op. Rock on, Rebecca! Hi, this is Vandal Drummond, and boy, do we have a lot of waves to catch tonight. So much to cover. There is the MPW show, Millennium Pro Wrestling, that took place this past Saturday, May 29th, featuring an appearance by Rowdy Roddy Piper. There is, we have a special guest tonight, Kevin Kleinrock of the Lucha pay-per-view coming up. And big news, Alfredo Esparza is now on Facebook. It don't get more bitchin' than that. And those of you who listen into Slammin' Stan every other week will notice that the haiku has changed a bit. And that's because we have a new muse. And while I wrote the haiku, while I myself penned it, we have to credit Fredo here for coming up with the idea of this new muse. Isn't that right, Alfredo?
Yeah. And plus I've even told you should form a tag team with her. You know? Yes,
Fredo suggested a tag team of Lucky Pierre and a gal that we only know as Rebecca, who won a battle royal at the Millennium Pro Wrestling show that took place in Chatsworth, California this past Saturday night. And, John Strongman has been the focus of all of the haikus I have written for Slammin' Stan. But there was this totally awesome chick, simply known as Rebecca, clad in pink, just like Lucky Pierre. And what can I say? She's hip, she's cool. She is the new subject of haiku for Slammin' Stan.
We're over Strongman now.
Yeah, we're over Strongman. The muse for the present is Rebecca.
Yeah.
Bit of a mystique about her. A very down-to-earth chick, was a student of Harley Race, and hoping she appears on more of these Millennium Pro Wrestling shows, a show where Lucha Lucky Pierre had his first match in almost 3 years, and he was clad in pink just like Rebecca and got a really cool photo op with her.
I didn't even think about that when I was telling you should team up with her. The odds of her coming back to MPW. I didn't realize, indie wrestling, you never know if that person's going to be back.
Yeah, you never know what's going to go on month to month with indie wrestling, but I hope she comes back. And, you suggested to Dan that we would make a good tag team, and then I like the way Dan put this. He'd make a good Blue Monkey for Rebecca.
Do they even know who the Blue Monkey is?
Probably. Oh, I doubt they do. So will it come to fruition? Will it not? We don't know. But I guess that's one of the first things that would be nice to touch on is you and I experienced the Millennium Pro Wrestling show in two very different ways. I got to experience it in the dressing room, and it was just, what can I say, an ecstatic experience because reunited with a lot of people I have not seen in several years, most notably Rob Courtney, who the Southern California indie scene knows as Craze, who is one of the greatest people I have met in the biz, a very, very nice guy. It's been way too long since I've seen him. In fact, the last time I saw him was at the Incredibly Strange show in L.A. in 2007.
Yeah.
And not only did I see a lot of people I have not seen in ages, I also met a lot of people, namely Amanda, a really awesome transgender wrestler. I met Bo Cooper for the first time, who is a really cool guy.
Were you allowed to say that, or is that kayfabe?
Oh, I think it's probably obvious just about anybody. Amanda's transgender.
Uh-huh.
She's very cool, and I only got to see, in fact, I saw very little of the wrestling that actually went on. I saw the end of her match and an angle she did with Rebecca toward the end, and from what I could see, Amanda, looks like a pretty passionate worker there.
Uh-huh.
Met a lot of guys who were having their first match in the Battle Royal.
The guy in the underwear.
What's funny is I didn't see him. I heard about him much later, like several days after the show, and I thought, Oh, my God. Thank God we have another incredibly strange wrestler entering the scene. I also met Disco Fury, who I have never met before, surprisingly.
Ooh, Disco Machine. Don't you mean Disco Machine?
Disco Machine. Why did I say Disco Fury?
I think there's a wrestler called Disco Fury.
Yeah, and then there's Disco Inferno. Well, Disco Machine,
I think
whose name is actually more exotic. His real name is actually more exotic than his wrestling handle. His real name is Mark Mondragon.
I think I've heard of that guy before, like under that name.
Oh, I didn't realize he wrestled under his...
No, not wrestling, just not in wrestling.
It's a cool name, isn't it?
Yeah.
I almost wonder why he went with Disco Inferno when he has such a hep name.
It's like Kevin Kleinrock. Isn't that like a wrestling type name?
Yeah, it is, totally.
It's a wrestling name right there.
Yeah. Also got to see Mary Lou Farron, who we always enjoy seeing, Commissioner Dan Farron's wife, and Sophia Carayas and our friend Shari from the Story Salon, where I occasionally get a chance to do my spoken word, my slice of life, my semi-esoteric rants. And probably the most notable thing on that show was the appearance of the legend Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
And what blew my mind the most was Roddy Piper was working from early evening to the very end of the show. When Piper wasn't in the crowd entertaining people, he was in the dressing room and spent a lot of time posing for pics and chatting it up with every one of us who would go up and, want to talk his ear off. Just a very nice guy. And believe it or not, that was the first time I ever met him. And
oh, really? Wow.
I am a Piper fan going way back to 1976 when he got his first substantial push here in Los Angeles.
Did he get there at the beginning of the show, or like at the start, like just as it was starting up?
I think as it was starting up. I don't think he was there, shortly before.
He wasn't
obviously,
there,
I was looking around for him like everybody else was. We were all pretending not to make it obvious that we were trying to get a Piper sighting, but of course we were. He was the last great thing to happen to the Los Angeles territory. Shortly after that, Los Angeles was on life support for a few years, with little glimpses of brilliance with people like Bad News Alan Coage and Hector Guerrero. But Piper was like the last great phenomenon. I can't even spit the word out. Phenomenon. Boy, do I need to take some diction classes or something? I swear.
You better start practicing first. You're going to have to do a promo at some point.
But I'll never forget, when I moved up to Oregon when I was 18, this was in 1980, the first thing I thought is, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to get to watch Roddy Piper every week. I got to see him once, and then he left for the Mid-Atlantic. That was when he dropped the loser leave town to Roddy Piper. My timing absolutely sucked, but it was great to get to meet him. I didn't have that much to say to him. It was just cool to...
that's what I had, like everybody's, like, shaking hands with him. Like, Ryan was really into, like, he could actually, that's the one thing about Ryan. He can talk with anybody, and I'm like, I don't really have anything to say to Roddy Piper.
That's my Achilles tendon, too. The only thing I could think of saying to him is I'll never forget when he was in WWF. I think it was in 1985. Dr. Jerry Graham always went to the dressing room, and there were occasionally people like Red Bastien would always welcome him with open arms, and I guess King Kong Bundy was always awesome with the Doc. But, there were a number of people who just kind of either look at him as, washed up or didn't know who he was. And I'll never forget, talking to the Doc on the phone one night, he said, I was at the show the other night, and Piper walked up all excited saying, oh, my God, I've always wanted to meet you, Dr. Graham. And he just, the Doc was just really moved by that. And, when Dr. Jerry Graham talks about people, I'd say 90% of the people he used to talk about was in the context of, oh, have they died yet? Or I hope they're living in squalor, something like that. But the 10% were the people he was just in awe of, people like Red Bastien and Antonino Rocca. And so whenever I run into somebody that the doc really thought highly of, I like to go up and just tell them how much it meant to him. But yeah, and the other person really excited me was Sophia. She was a Piper fan from back when she was a little girl, when the WWF mid-'80s was, riding high. And it was just cool how much time he spent with everybody from the casual fan to the indie workers.
Yeah, and he was still there, like towards, we were leaving and he was still there. So
that's right. Yes, just as we left, I think, was when he was just getting ready to head out.
He was just getting his stuff and putting it in the car. I think he was leaving as we were leaving. So he wasn't there any longer than we were.
In fact, somebody peeled out of that parking lot, burning rubber, and I don't know if it was him or.
It probably was him, because we were standing there still talking for a little longer.
Hence the name Hot Rod. What can we say?
Well, he had the type of car to do that sort of thing. The show was actually really good. A little long though. I still have to say it's still a long show though.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest hindrance of most indie shows, at least here in Southern California. I don't know about other areas. They tend to go a little long and they tend to wear out the crowd. But I had a great time just getting to get reacquainted with everybody, and it sounded like there was really good heat from the audience.
The fans loved it. They can't be that like thrilled through the whole show. So at some point they kind of start wondering, hey, let's finish this a little sooner.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to happen with any show if you just run it a little too long.
Yeah, it wasn't anything where it was noticeable or anything like that. Yeah. But even the stuff that you would think, okay, they're not going to like it, they kind of liked it.
Yeah, the one thing I was present for was the main event was local boy Logan X, who promoted the show, and
they were hot for that.
Yeah, they really dug that, and I thought, he wrestled Cincinnati Red, where Logan put his police badge up against Red's hair, and you'll be happy to hear that Red, of course, lost and got his hair cut.
I was the only person that was disappointed that Logan X won. I can't believe
Did you want to see him lose his badge?
Well, I mean, think about it. Just imagine Cincinnati Red as a police officer. That would have been awesome. Him
I didn't even think of that. That would be awesome.
That would have been a great angle right there. Like have them have a rematch down the road.
Would he have to then since he'd be like patrolling the Valley area, would he have to be called San Fernando Red or Chatsworth Red?
Well, that's the only bad thing. They had to do that. Otherwise, they'd get in trouble.
How else could they? And I was there for the post-match ceremony, and I thought that was really effective, actually.
Did you get cake?
I did not get cake. Yes. Who was it who served Roddy Piper a cake?
I think it was Logan's wife. But
that's so cool.
I don't know what it had on it, but we were just like, hey, you got cake. And nothing happened to the cake.
I know, usually growing up, if Roddy Piper had an angle involving a birthday cake in L.A., it would have wound up in somebody's face.
Yeah, but judging from the people that, with Red and Logan, the way they looked towards the end, there was no way they were going to get cake in their face.
This is true. That actually would have been very inappropriate. I mean, the angle worked exactly as it was supposed to work, and it was cool. The post-match friendship between Red and Logan. In fact, the first thing I thought, hey, that's lucha style.
Yeah.
Everybody making up in the end, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah, a handshake. Now you move on to something else.
Exactly. That's how it should be done.
They'll
Instead of NWO style, well, let's keep the story going.
Next
forever and ever.
Logan Red put something else on the line that I don't know what he does for a living. So.
Yeah, I don't know what he does either. Maybe we could work that in sometime. But and I had my first match in 3 years, and I enjoyed it.
How was it?
I actually enjoyed it. To be honest, right after the match, I was a little discouraged because I blew up right away. I think it was mostly from nerves as opposed to me.
Ryan asked me. He asked me, hey, you think Kurt's ready for this? Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, look, Dan's right there. I'm thinking, Dan's right there. Dan's not going to let him work that long. And it's like 5 minutes pass, and I'm like, okay. And then the whole angle, you know, the whole thing's building up. And I'm like, you guys are still wrestling, and you're still wrestling. They kick out everybody, and you're still wrestling. I'm like, okay, this is going a little too long for sure.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the match. I was Lucky Pierre, although that night Lucky Pierre was under the name, I think it was Ecto-1 Slut.
Yeah.
And I was representing Ghostbusters fan. And I was wrestling a rookie wrestler called Fanboy, who was representing Star Wars fans. And it was mainly a comedy match, and I don't mind that term comedy match because that's what I'm good for these days.
Uh-huh.
And probably the only criticism was there was a lot of different things worked into the match involving a troupe of Ghostbuster fans and a small troupe of Star Wars fans. And these were people who obviously were not familiar with the wrestling business, and so a lot of the timing of the angles in the match were awkward. But no, I had a really good time, and Fanboy made me feel really good because he blew up too. And yeah, probably it was nerves on his part too. I can always tell when I'm blowing up because I'm out of shape and when I'm blowing up because of nerves. And I think since it was my first appearance in a few years, it was nerves.
You know the funny thing watching you wrestle in with American wrestlers as opposed to like the Lucha guys. With the Lucha guys, you look normal sized, but with all the American guys, you look a lot smaller than you really do, than you really are. You know.
It's so true, and it's awkward because I'm used to locking up Mexican style, locking up to the right side instead of the left, and I'm just used to I'm used to doing the traditional hold for hold that they do in Lucha, and it's a whole different ball game with American style.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody say that you were trying to do Lucha, and I'm like, and I was like, yeah, really? Well, you know, 'cause you were trying to do it, but it's like it's not gonna happen.
Nah, it's not gonna happen. Although I was impressed at Fanboy when I talked about doing one spot where I lock up to the right that he knew right away what I was talking about.
Wow, so he's been training then.
Yeah, he's been training with Jesse Hernandez, so it makes sense that he knows about locking up to the right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I thought the whole angle was he was like a fan or something, like, you know, just like a fan. Hence the name Fanboy. I thought, okay, he's going to be...
Yeah, well, Fanboy, hence he was a fan of Star Wars.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be a wrestler. I thought he was going to be he was going to bring somebody to wrestle against.
Yeah, in fact, that was my first thought, is I thought I was going to actually be doing a comedy match with somebody who had never been in the ring. And so I was thinking through my head, okay, what do I do with this? So I was actually a little thrown off when I found out he actually was a worker.
Oh, that was good. That's good, at least.
But no, we had a good time. Darth Vader came out and hit me with a chair, and that was probably the most awkward moment because Darth Vader, I guess, must be getting older because it took him quite a while to get out there when it was time to do the spot. He was nowhere to be seen.
It took like 10 minutes for him to show up.
Yeah, but I had a really good time. It was good being back in there, and huge thanks to the folks at Millennium for bringing me in and letting me perform that night. I had a blast. It was good to be back in there, and even better to just get reacquainted with everybody.
Well, the rest of the show was pretty good. I thought Craze and Bo Cooper versus the Bellers was really good too. It was entertaining.
Yes, and that involved some action with one of the valets, didn't it?
Yeah, one of the valets read my review.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. You look for it. You'll see what she wrote.
I'll have to do some cruising here here pretty soon. So would you say that was the best match of the evening?
I think so. Well, you know, I think the main event was really the best match because I think that had the most heat.
Well, I think a lot of the boys in the indie leagues here in Southern California want to give a big thanks to Logan X for reviving Millennium Pro Wrestling.
Doing another show.
Yeah, they're doing another show on July 31st, again in Chatsworth. Boy, what's with my enunciation skills tonight, I swear.
You gotta take classes or something.
I do, totally. Adam Pearce will be appearing on that show, and
he'll be facing Ryan Taylor.
Is that who he'll be facing?
You're like, who's Ryan Taylor?
Yeah, you can see how in the know I am.
Yeah, Ryan Taylor, the guy who beat Joey Ryan.
Okay, and I did not see that match either.
Yeah, that was a good match too. Yeah. It was more of a, like, for the women.
That's cool. Yeah. I did actually see Ryan Taylor. I mainly know him because I saw he and Joey talking out their spots.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I could see the women digging either of them.
You know who I was really impressed with? Anchors Away.
That's a match I wish I had seen because I've heard several people raving about them.
Well, the match, they were really good. The other guys, basically the match was one of the guys was going to get beat up and the other guy was going to get upset. So, they really just beat up on one guy. But at one point, this one little girl yelled out that Anchors Away was cheating. So one of the guys yelled out, "Cállate, chismosa." So I just thought that was so funny. You could tell.
That's awesome.
So I thought they did a lot of good double team moves, though. So I can't really. They were really impressive.
That's very cool.
Yeah, the rest of the show. Oh, you know who else I thought was really good? GQ Money.
Who's that?
GQ Money.
Yes, in fact, you and Fizzy were both raving about that fella.
Yeah. I had no idea he's the announcer for that Viva La Lucha show.
I did not know that either.
Yeah, I was looking at their website, and I see the YouTube, their YouTube video, and I see Larry Rivera on one side. I'm like, who's? And then there's the ball guy. I'm like, oh my God, that's GQ Money. Because I know he did. I saw that video before I went to the show, but I had no idea that guy was a wrestler.
Oh, trip out.
Because I didn't watch XPW, so. We've already talked about my lack of XPW viewing.
Oh, Lord. A lot of other people saw there that night. Saw my old friend Tom Hankins.
He was there? I didn't see him.
Oh, you didn't see him? Yeah,
no.
He was... he showed up several times in the dressing room. I know he was talking with Fisico for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, probably the only wistful moment of the night is when we were driving back from the show, Fisico and I were wondering if the All Nation Center in Boyle Heights still existed. All Nation Center is where Fisico made his debut and where we wrestled probably most of our matches. And so we took a drive up Soto Street, and, we saw the Fleabag Hotel that was next to All Nation Center. We saw the McDonald's that was next to All Nation Center. But where All Nation Center once stood was now a Social Security Administration building, so...
appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very appropriate.
It's so
appropriate. Almost poetic.
I know, it's so appropriate now with the economy and everything going on.
And maybe I should write a haiku about that, I guess.
Depressing.
Before we move on to other wrestling-related stuff, I would like to mention a friend of mine on Facebook, Wes Daniel, who is active in the Cauliflower Alley Club, who from June 6th to June 12th is going to be going on a lengthy bicycle ride, 566 miles.
Whoa.
All the way up to San Francisco and back down to Los Angeles. It's part of a group called AIDS Life Cycle that is going to benefit the LA Gay and Lesbian Center and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. Wes is doing it in memory of his partner, Eric, who passed away in 2004. And Wes is a really great guy who has been getting into the whole sport of bicycling with an extreme passion in just the last year. There was a piece written on the race in the newspaper, The Daily Breeze, that you can find online. In fact, I will put the link up on standtheembryo.com later tonight.
Or on
Facebook. It goes into detail about his partner, Eric, who was HIV positive and also suffered from liver cancer and passed away after just a few months of his diagnosis. And a lot of the article in the Daily Breeze focuses on Wes, and there's a before photo of him when he took part in his first bicycling event about a year ago, and an after photo in which he, in the last year, has dropped 60 pounds.
Wow.
And he looks great. Last time I seen him was a few years ago at Cauliflower Alley, and when I saw the photo of him recently, I almost didn't recognize him. He looks a lot more, when I saw him at Cauliflower Alley, here we go again, he looked cute like a teddy bear, kind of cuddly, and now he looks like a stud. I got to tell you, he looks great. And just want to tell people, Wes is a really awesome guy, and he very active in Cauliflower Alley. And on the Daily Breeze webpage, there's a link where you can sponsor Wes for the ride. The ride is not a race; it's just ride everybody's taking part in. And Wes Daniel, you can also find him on Facebook. If for those of you who are connected with me, Facebook, look him up on my friends list, friend him, great guy, and if you can, sponsor him. Cool. And I'll be checking Facebook frequently throughout the race just to see how Wes is faring. 566 miles, that's a lot more motivated than I think I could get.
Is he going to update on his Facebook where he's at or whatever? Or?
I have a feeling he will. He bikes so frequently, and I think I recall him giving little Facebook posts during or toward the end of a ride.
Oh.
Man, am I on drugs tonight or something?
Yeah, man, you're just like wearing out.
Yeah, I am.
I'm on a roll.
Tap out.
I'm talking now.
I'm taking a. I'm taking my role as Lucky Pierre blowing up a little too seriously, I guess. So
Bix
here I am.
Bix hasn't called because he hasn't friended me on Facebook.
Ooh.
Know that?
You hear that, Bixie Demon? Remember that. Everybody listening live, everybody downloading this podcast, friend Fredo. He's on Facebook, so everybody must friend him. He must have lots of friends.
they're going to friend like 458 other Fredos. Well, they can find me on your friends list, though.
Yes, so check it out. Fredo Esparza, folks.
Plus, we have a bunch of pages too. You have your page for you did the Slammin Stand podcast page.
That's right. We have that page which you can check out.
And I did the Lucha World page.
The Lucha World page. In fact, I recommend everybody go to luchaworld.com. One of the things that is up on the page is the video of L.A. Park punching a fan right in the fucking nose.
Oh, yeah, we got a caller now, of course.
Who's the caller?
It's Kevin Kleinrock.
Oh, see, we got a
Kevin Kleinrock. You beat Dan Farron to the punch, my friend. I guess Dan Farron is a no-show or something.
Yeah.
He's leaving you to rot with us, my friend. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing very well. Now, I've only met you, I think, twice, actually. But I remember, before you were involved with XPW, I remember when you were sending emails to people like Dan Farron and myself. You were wanting to get a promotion started. And if I recall right, you wanted to put together kind of an NWO-type faction called The Tribe. Am I remembering correctly?
Okay, I have to admit I have one of the world's worst memories. But there were definitely projects that I was working on putting together before XPW, but the Tribe thing doesn't ring a bell. But it doesn't mean I did it, because, people talk about, especially XPW-related stuff all the time, and I just don't remember. So, I'm self-admitted horrible. But, ironically, with the Vampiro stuff in the news right now, apparently when we went down to Mexico after WSX to do these few RXLL shows, David Marquez reminds me that apparently at one point we got pulled over and had guns pulled on us, and I have no memory of that whatsoever. And I think that I would remember You'd think, like, he's like, you only remember we're on the side of the road and they had guns, and I know that it was the first booking meeting that I was ever in with guns, like guys with like semi-automatic weapons, which was quite an experience. But other than that, I don't know. So I have a bad memory. I might have.
If you don't remember something like that, I would say you have a wonderful gift of mental blocking.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah. So I very well could have. I mean, Dan. Though Dan and I were there at different times, I knew of Dan from the Slammers Wrestling Federation days, the very, very early days of his involvement in wrestling and mine. So we go all the way back there.
In fact, I think you showed up at Slammers shortly after I left there because Dan and I, when we first met, that was one of the first actually active wrestling experiences we had with each other when he was wrestling there. And I hung around there for about I think 6 months until I started getting some of the local lucha gigs. Tell us how you got involved with Slammers.
Well, I got involved with Slammers, I guess as luck. I had decided back when I was just about to turn 13 years old that I wanted to work in pro wrestling. Like that's what I wanted to do with my life, and I decided let's figure out how to make this happen. And I knew I wasn't going to be a wrestler because I was this scrawny 12-year-old kid that didn't really like getting hurt, and so I wasn't going to actually like put my body on the line. But at that point, like I didn't understand the business at that point. You know, I mean, I knew that it wasn't quote unquote real, but I also believed that Jack Tunney was the WWE president and he made the matches, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be Jack Tunney. And I ended up ordering this book. It was more like a pamphlet from the back of Pro Wrestling Illustrated called "So You Want to Be a Pro Wrestler," which was by Dennis Brent and Percy Pringle. And in the back of this book had a list of all the wrestling schools in the country, or at least I guess the ones that they knew of at the time. And I was born and raised my entire life in Van Nuys, California. So I'm flipping through this thing, and there's Sun Valley, California. I think the P.O. Box was in Sherman Oaks. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a wrestling school right down the street, basically. And now at this point, I'm probably 14 years old maybe, and I'm nervous as heck, but I work up the confidence to like call the phone number and try to figure out if there's a way to get involved in wrestling. And I nervously dial, sweating profusely, and the number's disconnected. And it was just like, well, there goes my career. And for whatever reason, I decided to try information to see if the number had changed, and the book had misprinted it by one digit. So I ended up calling and finding out all about Slammers, and I started, I dragged my parents, my mom included, out to the first show that we all went to as a family, in the sweat box in Sun Valley. And
I remember that.
And at that time, I think that's when, I don't know if it was that first show I went to or just as I started going more, that's when Chris Kloss was just the obnoxious fan at ringside who like was entertaining, but was, you know, I mean, that place so small, you know, maybe 30 people at a show, and if you were vocal, and everybody heard you, and you know, it was very interactive.
In fact, what I remember about the vocal audience was a lot of it. Vern Langdon had like just canned audience noise that he would turn on for those shows.
Oh, he wasn't doing that by the time I came around.
Oh, that was half the fun of Slammers.
Oh no,
that and the rock hard ring that Mike Sharp Sr. had built.
Yes. Yeah. So I started attending the shows. I mean, the things that made Slammers to me were, you know, the fact that everybody wore trunks and that was it. Nobody, there was no other. You know, maybe someone had a vest, but everybody was just a different color of trunk, and there was no entrance music. But that was, you know, that's how Vern loved it. It was, you know, it was old school, and it was meant to be old school. And so, yeah, I convinced my parents, or my mom never came back again, but my dad to take me every now and then. And it's actually, I still have it to this day. There was an article that Scott Harris had done for the LA Times where he came to cover Slammers, and I was a fan at ringside that Dynamite D blew his nose on, which infuriated my father. He's like, that's the most unsanitary thing I've ever seen. I don't want you going back. But there's this newspaper article from like the early 90s of me being a fan in the audience at Slammers, and D blowing his nose on me, and pictures of Ed Ferreira and his gorgeous flowing blonde hair, and that
must have felt like opium to you to get that kind of recognition at that point.
Oh my God, it was crazy. And what was really cool though was a few years later when Darren and Patrick Hernandez and I started SCCW, I had convinced Scott Harris to come back out and cover an SCCW show. Now as like, I'm not this kid at ringside anymore. I'm a promoter with Darren and Patrick, and so that was really cool of him to come and do that. I would also find out later that because of a quote that I gave in that newspaper article, where to me it was just like anyone would do, kind of trying to link one thing to another. I said, like, out of the ashes of the Slammers Wrestling Federation came SCCW, and Vern Langdon has never forgiven me for that statement.
Now, I remember reading something online when all that went down. I guess you and Darren and a few of the other participants pulled a surprise on Vern.
Well, here was the ironic part. Okay, so I started working for Slammers right about the time I was 16, and I worked for the Slammers for 2 years, doing basically everything from writing for the program, ring announcing, timekeeping, bringing Slammers to my high school to put on fundraiser events and trying to help expand where they were doing shows. And but Vern, being so old school, totally saved me on everything. I was not allowed in the booking meetings. I was not allowed at ringside when they were going over stuff for the shows. I stayed in the lobby. Even though I was a ring announcer, and even though I was writing the results for the programs, I got saved on everything. And I could appreciate it from, an old school standpoint, but I knew that if I wanted to make a career out of wrestling, I had to learn, and I had to learn more, and I had to either get that experience myself or work somewhere that I was going to be able to be part of the process and learn better. So right around the time I was going off to college, it was just an easy way to break away. And I told Vern that I was going to go focus on school, and I was going to take a step back from wrestling for a while, and we had a very amicable parting the ways. Well, Vern, the old school mentality in terms of just everything being so old school, started to get to a lot of the guys. Like, they started running Bakersfield every Thursday night. I think it was Thursday.
Strongbow Stadium, wasn't it?
Yes, Strongbow Stadium, because that was wrestling night in Bakersfield from the golden era. And it didn't matter, yes, it was Thursdays, because there was an issue on Thanksgiving. That Darren wanted Thanksgiving off, and Vern was like, no, we run every Thursday. So if it's Thanksgiving, it's Thanksgiving. And Darren had been, Vern's right-hand guy for all those years. He was booking the shows, and he was running the school, and so there was a lot of guys that had a problem with Vern wanting everyone to be exclusive, and there wasn't really, guys, there wasn't much to be exclusive to, even though the scene was different back then.
On top of that, I knew a lot of fellows who would work for Vern, and they never got paid to wrestle. They had to actually pay to wrestle on the shows.
Yeah, or they get paid $5 or $10, and again, there's paying your dues, and look, when we did XPW, our rule was you had to be exclusive to us in the areas in which we promoted. So if we ran LA and San Bernardino and, Bakersfield, then you had to be exclusive to us there, because when we came to town once a month, we were charging $25, $35 for tickets, and we needed to give people a special show. But it didn't matter. If you wanted to go wrestle for anybody you wanted to in any other city or state or whatever, no problem. And I still stand by that philosophy. But with Vern, it was like there was an incident that happened where I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone had been offered a gig on an AWA show or something, and Vern basically said, you can do it, but then you can't work for me anymore. And so a lot of guys were just getting frustrated. And at one point, this is when the NWO thing was really hot, and Darren and Patrick Hernandez and a few other people I actually don't know if Patrick was involved at that point, but a bunch of other wrestlers decided that they were going to do this DWO, the Dynamite World Order, and it was going to be a legit shoot invasion on a Slammers wrestling show that happened at the high school that I had gone to, that Vern started running regularly at now. And Darren had called me and said, hey, we're gonna do this night, and why don't you come out to the show and check it out? So I went to the show that night. I hadn't been to a show in quite some time, and in Darren's mind, at least what he always told me, was, look, either we're going to do it and Vern's going to go, well, that was fucked up, you shouldn't have done that, and ignore it, or it would turn into a potentially cool angle that maybe would make some people interested in Slammers for a little bit. Well, the way that it went down was they did this angle on the show, or they did this spot on the show, and all these guys who were in the audience, these former wrestlers, took off their shirts, revealing these DWO shirts, and got in the ring, and Darren cut a promo on Vern. And the next morning, I talked to Darren, and Darren told me that Vern had basically thrown in the towel, that he had told Jesse, who was Tyrone Tiny Little for Slammers, and Sybil for XPW, that don't even bother setting the ring back up at the wrestling gym tonight. I'm done. Like, forget it. Well, I'm still confused to this day as to what exactly happened, because years later, when I talked to Vern via email, I think it was a little bit, Vern insisted that I was part of this whole thing, and that my revisionist history, which I think I explained that story in the LA Times, was pure bullshit. And Vern became the only person to ever tell me that he wouldn't believe me if my tongue was notified. And I thought that was awesome. I'm like, wow.
That's actually a compliment coming from him.
That's a great line.
I love it.
But it sucks because, look, the two people that I probably owe most in my career to are Vern Langdon and Rob Black. And there's a lot of people that have not a lot of good things to say about both those guys. But I still, for whatever you can say about them and whatever they are and whatever they've done, and I can't deny that I would not have been able to do the things I've done or get to the places that I've gotten without their belief and support and letting me learn and work under them. So, it kind of is what it is. But so that was Slammers, and then Slammers rolled into SCCW, and SCCW became XPW, and then that was a whole other story.
And of course, you went into Wrestling Society X, which I really wish was given more of a chance. I thought that was a very cool and kitschy, and I love the production on that show. Plus, I love to see some of our local boys get some good ring time in there.
Yeah, that was, people ask me, or as I've gone on and as I've gone to pitch other non-wrestling related shows to MTV, people have been like, why would you want to work with them again? Like, they totally dicked you around, and they canceled your show after a few weeks. And it's like, I learned so much about the television business doing that show. I knew about the wrestling business. I'd worked in the wrestling business at that point for more than 10 years. But when WWE does something, they are a wrestling company that goes and does a deal with a television network, and they provide a television show for a network. Same with TNA. Same with pretty much every other wrestling group that's been around. Even when Global was basically partnering with ESPN back in the day, Global still was in full control of their show. Even if you have commentators, you look at like the MMA world today, and how CBS might provide commentators for Strikeforce, but they're not matchmaking, and they're not making the real decisions. But with MTV, this was a different beast. We from day one were creating a television show with the network. They were 50-50 partners with us, and even though we pretty much had creative control, they had final say over everything. And if they wanted something, it was up to me to kind of figure out how to make it work. Like, for example, we weren't allowed to. Let me take a step back. People kind of like to poke fun a little bit at WSX because of how over the top some of our stunts were. We blew up so many different things. It was like, what could we blow up this week? But the problem was, we weren't allowed to use chairs. We weren't allowed to use kendo sticks. We weren't allowed to do anything violent that could have been easily replicated by a kid.
But you could blow each other up.
Yes.
I love it.
For some reason, I mean,
for some reason, I like that.
So
I dig it.
And for some reason, thumbtacks were cool because kids can't get thumbtacks, apparently. I don't know. I wasn't going to question it. They were going to give us thumbtacks. I wasn't going to point out the obvious. So it became, how do we do these over-the-top stunts? And really, MTV was like, we want to have, if we're going to do a wrestling show, it needs to be something that you can't see anywhere else. It's not just about the good wrestling. We have to have a stunt every week pretty much. And one of the things I learned about the television business was, unless you are committed to the idea, never bring it up, even jokingly, in front of a television executive. Because inevitably, the ideas that you're joking about or are least in love with are the ones that they're going to love. We were sitting around having a meeting, and they're talking about...
Be very calculated when you're joking.
Yes, exactly, right. We're sitting around having a meeting about what kind of over-the-top matches can we have, and I'm just throwing out some of, the examples of, we need to come up with our takes on, these are some of the matches that have been done in Japan. And I mentioned the Piranha Death match. And the eyes lit up. And they were like, we need to have a Piranha Death match. And the thing is they wanted to, open the series with that. And I was like, guys, I'll give you a Piranha Death match, but you need to let me build to it. You need to let me figure out how are we going to get to a Piranha Death match. And so maybe it wasn't the most innovative kind of story writing in the world, but I was like, look, if we're going to do a Piranha Death match, let's have a faction whose gimmick is they leave dead fish on people, and at least work the whole reason to be sick of the fish and build to this Piranha Death match. I mean, like I said, it's stretch, but it's something. I mean, even if you look back at the at Fabian Kalin, the DQ Money, the ring announcer, I wanted the original idea was not for him to take this slow transformation over the course of his appearance. The whole idea was that he was going to be more like this evil circus barker, and that we'd find out down the road that he was really kind of the one pulling the strings and making the matches for whoever was really behind WSX. And we're talking pre kind of planning what would kind of happen in season 2 and season 3, which was another lesson I learned. Don't. You can do that because you want to be building in case you do get season 2s and season 3s of shows, but don't have your heart set on it. Like I was saying before, the money was phenomenal. I got paid great. The wrestlers got paid great. I still don't think that most of those guys had ever seen, nor will see, paydays like they got from that. They gave us a $3.5 million budget to make them 10 half-hour episodes.
That must have blown your mind. I mean, because you have a rather unusual story to tell. Here you are, this kid in Slammers when you're 13, and just a matter of years later, you're dealing with a $3+ million budget.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's funny because I still remember. As bad as my memory is, there are certain things that I won't forget, and that I stick in my memory. I could picture exactly where I was standing, who was standing there. I was standing in the parking lot at Big Vision, and it's Houston Curtis, the CEO of Big Vision and the executive producer on the show, and Sam Corcus, who was the other executive producer on the show from the Big Vision side, and then we had our executives from MTV. And, we're looking at XPW. For an independent company, XPW had a pretty big budget. Our shows probably cost $20,000, $30,000, and we get a month of television out of it. And we're standing around and talking about the pilot, and Sam says, well, they're not going to give us more than $200 for the pilot. And I said, $200 what? And he said, $200,000. And I was,
was that the most surreal feeling?
It was. I couldn't imagine. I'm like,
that is astounding.
For a half hour, and let me tell you though, in the end, the pilot ended up costing $650,000 for 27 minutes of footage.
Oh my God! So there was an unintentional bartering system that you were working with that you didn't realize would go that high.
Well, here's the thing. In the end, our budget for the series was $350,000 an episode. again, just see, the thing is that when you hear that now, coming from the wrestling world, you don't get it. I didn't get it. But when you look and see how actual Hollywood television productions are done, the money goes very fast. For example, normal wrestling show, you shoot it, and you have one editor that cranks out an episode a week. That's how, XPW was done. That's how ECW was done. That's how most wrestling shows are done. We shot the entire season, put it all in the can, and had $2,000 to $3,000 a week editors editing different episodes at the same time. And you're given like 6 weeks to edit a single half-hour episode when you're making quote-unquote real TV. It was just unbelievable. I mean, I saw where that $3.5 million went, and it didn't go to, it wasn't like the set cost $1 million, and that's where, I mean, it was, though it is funny because a lot of the stuff on the set, like the debris and stuff, was expensive. When you get like real art direction people, it was just, I mean, some of the money seemed ridiculous. But the other thing that I learned from the television side of things is when you're a producer in the television world and you're doing a television show with a network, you as a production company, generally, if you're a big enough production company, which Big Vision was, your production company fee for the executive basically is 10% of the budget. So whatever the budget is, the more the budget, the more you're making. So the goal of a good production company is to figure out how to push the budget as high as possible without making it too high that the network says we can't afford to do the show.
Right.
And, so, but, and the philosophy with a pilot is usually, if you're a good producer, is put it all on the screen. Don't worry about putting pennies or dollars or thousands of dollars even in your pocket for a pilot, because if your pilot doesn't get picked up, it's useless. You're not going to make any real money anyway. So in the end, the pilot ended up costing $650,000, but the money that we spent above the $350 had to be amortized over the other episodes. So in the end, we had to still come in at $3.5 million for the 10 episodes. And that, again, going back to the whole, like, it's still, even understanding the TV business a little bit better and understanding that every network has millions of dollars, or every major network has millions of dollars put aside to spend on developing shows, and they understand that for every hit, you're going to have 5 or 6 failures, and you're going to spend millions to find that hit. It's still just, to this day, I will never understand why they didn't at least keep airing the episodes or even air the finale, even if it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, why they marathoned it all that 1 week when they spent that money? It just never made sense. I mean, granted, I think we probably sold a lot more DVDs because that final episode with the exploding cage match and the piranha match never aired on television.
There was a mystique, and people still, the hardcore still wanted to see what was going to happen at the season finale.
Yeah, and I mean, and the DVD set too. I mean, we did a lot with the DVD set. I mean, that to me, this was like you said. I mean, this guy that wanted to be in wrestling at 12, who was working like for the small local indie at 16, and who at 24 thought he was going to be happy being done with his career when XPW was over, because we had built XPW to be something that was pretty large and pretty significant. And then to go, okay, now I've dealt with this $3.5 million show, I was like, we're going to make this DVD set incredible, because this is going to be my legacy. Like, this is it. I'm going to always have this. They'll give it to my grandkids. I'm be able to, so we put a lot into it. We did the alternate commentary, and we put all those the virtual trading cards, which were like the little promos of everybody, and we had all the deleted scenes. Like Nikki, here's one of the other things that they had the kind of control over, and people kind of made fun of it, and I don't blame them. It was the pretty people show. Like, can you imagine? I don't know that we ever really talked about this. There would be MTV executives on headset having the audience coordinators try to rearrange the audience to put the more pretty people, the prettier people, in the front, and move the less attractive, which were all the normal wrestling fans, not the paid extras, and move them to the back. And on the pilot, there's one guy that just would not. Seriously, like on headset, like in the production truck. Okay, now move that guy here, move that girl here, just crazy stuff. Like, it's so surreal. But
well, in fact, I was going to say, anybody who has been involved in pro wrestling, whether it's on an indie level or a big level, can say, I've had a very unique life experience. But here you are in a very unique profession, and you are thrusted into the world of TV, which is another unique profession. And very few people in the unique profession of pro wrestling can say that they had an experience like you had. That is, like, way cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, and I think we also taught a lot. I mean, none of the executives that we worked with at MTV are still there. They've all left on their own accord. But I think people learned a lot there about wrestling. When we did the pilot, we wanted to have a director direct the wrestling who knew how to direct wrestling. We wanted to bring Dave Marquez in to direct the wrestling because he's a phenomenal wrestling director. Yeah. And despite Dave's wrestling credits, and despite him having like actual like sports and news background credits, it wasn't good enough. They brought in a guy who had an Emmy for a show on the Soap Network, a talk show on the Soap Network, and he insisted that everybody walk through the matches that they were going to do, step by step, move by move. And obviously that wasn't going to work well. But even better, he started writing down in the walkthroughs where people were going to go so he could have his notes for how to direct the cameras when this was going to happen, as if it was like blocking a sitcom. And about 3 minutes into our live shoot, because everyone finally got on board. Look, there are no retakes. We do this once per tape. We cannot. That was one of the things that we put our foot down on. It's like we're not doing retakes. If you want to retake an entrance because something went wrong with an entrance, okay. But there will never be a moment of wrestling action that is on a retake, and you're not going to get a guy back in the ring to get a close up of this move or whatever.
Do that moonsault again and again and again.
Yeah. But literally, like about 3 minutes into the opening match, once we went like live to tape for the pilot, the guy literally took his notebook and chucked it and was like, "All right, I guess you guys are right." And
we must have been grinning from ear to ear, at least on the inside at that moment.
I didn't know that until later because I was at ringside, kind of pulling stuff together live in the building, and this was happening in the truck. But it was definitely interesting. We consequently used a different director for the series once we got to pick up for the series. But even that, I mean that was someone at least that Big Vision had worked with before, and he was much more open and understanding of where we had gone and come from. But he's going back to the whole network thing. I don't remember if it was right before or right after. But the big thing that he had done right before, right after was America Bingo Night or whatever. Like you can't. I was happy with how he directed WSX. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like again, it goes back to the whole. I'm a guy who never really cared growing up or whatever about credits or whatever. Since college, like since my second year of college, where I like worked at lecture notes on the campus of UCLA, like when people would come in and like want lecture notes from classes, so I'd hand them whatever lecture note. Like that's like the last what I consider quote unquote real job that I've had. Yeah. Like I've been blessed. I've never really gone on a job interview since then. I've never really I've been lucky to get kind of moved throughout the wrestling and entertainment world and not have to worry about that. So I never really worried about titles. Like in XPW, I made up my title. I chose Vice President of Operations because that's what Eric Bischoff was in WCW, and it seemed like that's what stuff I was going to be doing. And then at Big Vision, Houston had given me a Vice President title. But I learned in having to present myself to MTV and having to start pitching other shows that titles mean everything in Hollywood. And you need to protect yourself just like how WWE's gone through their changes over the years, and the guys that were once agents are now called producers. It's for a reason, and it's not just because internally at WWE, or at least I don't think it is, I can't speak for them, but I don't think it's because internally at WWE, they felt like that was a cooler title for them to have around Titan Towers. It's because it gives you more credibility when you're trying to do something else or have your entertainment product taken seriously. I mean, wrestling has always been this weird wrestling, weird type of program because it's scripted, but it's sport, but it's this, but it's that, and nobody's ever really been able to pinpoint how to treat the writers and producers of wrestlers. I mean, the writers for WWE kind of get screwed because if they were writing sitcoms or dramas, most of the people that have been there for any significant period of time, when they left, they would probably be able to sit by and collect checks for years and years to come because of royalties and rights when it comes to use of that footage. Like I know Dave Lagana, made that, we had that whole conversation before, that just the sheer number of episodes of television that he wrote across the various shows when he was there. But everyone kind of falls into this weird middle ground, and there's some guys like Chris Bell who have been able to parlay into other mainstream film or television, but that's also partially because where he came from before, and he was a film student and he studied film, and he didn't just come up through the wrestling ranks as a wrestler or someone else. So,
well, I have to ask you, where XPW was interesting, I have to say, and looked enjoyable. Wrestling Society X, I think, was very imaginative, and when I say this, I don't say it as a knock, but over the top. I got to be honest, I love over the top. And do you hope you'll be able to work in the TV industry with such a project again in the future, or are you ever going to try to shop something around again?
Oh, I've been shopping, brother. Another, I guess, in the somewhat fairy tale, story, I guess, of my career. My first ever television show pitch was WSX. And we went in, we pitched it. By the time we got back to the office, we had a call from MTV saying, we want to do the pilot.
Oh, my Lord, that's like no pun intended, but like a Hollywood story in itself.
Seriously, and I've pitched, I don't know, 24 shows since then, and we've had bites, we've had nibbles, we've had network, we developed a show called New Jack, Bounty Hunter and Beyond, and it was basically the anti-dog. Here's this guy who he was a bounty hunter before he was a pro wrestler. He got into pro wrestling, and now he's retiring from pro wrestling to become a bounty hunter again. But unlike Dog, who's helping people and rehabilitating people and preaching to people, New Jack don't give a crap about who you are or what you did. He doesn't even care what your name is. He's just looking at the bond jump and how much money he's going to get when he turns you into jail. And he's got his bills on the front seat next to him. He's like, all right, well, you just paid my cable bill and my cell phone bill and this and that, and I don't really give a crap what you did.
That sounds intriguing.
I will send you the link to the reel.
Yes, please do. If I had the means, I'd pitch it.
we pitched it to a number of places. A&E gave us a verbal commitment to do the show. They told us that they were going to give us the supervising producer from Dog because they felt that this was going to be their next 100-episode series, and they really wanted to make sure it was done right. And 6 months later, no contract had been signed, and just kind of fell by the wayside. And we started feeling like there's kind of an underhanded practice that happens in the television business, and I don't know that that's what happens here. I'm not saying that at all. But a lot of times, a network that doesn't want your show to air will kind of string you along to keep your show off the air if it's kind of something that could compete with theirs. I honestly don't believe. I mean, the guy that we pitched to at A&E is a wrestling fan. He's always tried to find ways to work wrestling when he could into the network. But the head of the network has always had the philosophy of, we have gone from like a number 30 or number 20 something cable network to a top tier cable network, and we did it without stooping to using pro wrestling to get there. We're not TBS or TNT or USA. We've done it without using wrestling, and so we're not going to use wrestling because I don't like wrestling. So it's kind of been a struggle, and I don't know. That's kind of what killed it. It is also interesting enough, the first time ever that we or our agents and we were repped by ICM, which is a huge LA agency. One of the four biggest probably, maybe two biggest. Spike TV refused to even hear the pitch. It was the first time ever we've been straight out rejected from hearing a pitch, and our agents and all the millions of shows they've pitched, they're like, New Jack, no, not hearing the pitch. So, but yeah, I mean, it was surreal. But yeah, it's been a long road since then. But there's still some things in the works. I'm pitching shows on a regular basis, and actually going to be, and really the most exciting thing that I've been working on now, and kind of the next hopeful big thing will be this Viva La Lucha Mass Republic project.
In fact, I guess I should have asked you about that a long time ago, because that's what Dan was wanting to pull you on before, and I'm going to have to shame Dan for being a no-show tonight.
Actually, I think
shaming Dan is one of the things I do best, so I will do that in the private.
Dan just sent me an email.
What's
Dan
that?
sent an email that says, I can't get through. I think there may be a problem with Blog Talk. Sorry.
No. We have two other callers on the line too, so it's not Blog Talk.
Well, maybe it's just Dan. So we love you, Dan.
Fascinating.
I think Dr. Lucha made it too.
Is that the Bixie Demon?
Yes. And now, actually, no, wait. It's after 11. I don't know when Dan tried to call, but if you can't try to call after 11. You have to call during the live broadcast.
Well, I think right now Dan is doing a stand-up gig, so I think he'll be unable to.
I think Dr. Lucha made it in on time, though.
Yeah. So is this DR Luch?
I'm on as well. I just wanted to. This show is so great. I just wanted to dial in to hear the second hour.
Well, before we get into any other subjects, I would like to hear Kevin Kleinrock tell us about how you got the Viva La Lucha pay-per-view series running, and tell us just a little bit about the body of the work.
Oh, it is Kevin Kleinrock. Good. I didn't hear the beginning of the show, and I was hoping I figured out which Big Vision guy it was properly.
That's right. Take it away, Kevin.
Well, really, the seeds of the whole Viva La Lucha project start about 4 or 5 years ago. Growing up in LA and being a wrestling fan, I've always enjoyed lucha. I really started getting into lucha around the time of like the World Wrestling Peace Festival, and my later high school years when I was really just diving into every kind of pro wrestling I could dive into, and been tape trading and just watching as much as I could. And but flashing ahead, and we had used lucha guys in XPW. We'd used Parka, and we brought in Damien Halloween were our first and kind of our regular tag team champions, and we brought in El Salcero, and we brought in Mosca, who just worked with again as X-Fly, and really enjoyed that. Plus we had the Rev Pro guys who would steal the show with their kind of lucha inspired matches, opening most of our shows like the Olympic, and so I'd always been a fan, and both from the business side and from the wrestling fan side of lucha. And I met Conan when we were doing XPW, and we had remained friends and in contact. And when I came to Big Vision, now originally when I left the Extreme fold and headed over to Big Vision at the start of Big Vision, I really didn't have any intention of getting back and doing anything in wrestling. I was cool to be done, but there was opportunities to start producing some different DVD series, and like we did the Pro Wrestling Ultimate Insider series, and then Conan had all this footage from some of the shows that he had promoted back in TJ and other places that Ron Rivera actually shot like single camera from the audience. And
I actually have to interrupt for a second because I need to ask you about this. Did you get it from Ron Rivera, or did you get it from the person who he allegedly sold his collection to?
But the footage that we used for Desperados Del Ring came directly from Conan's hands.
Oh, okay. So did he get it shot himself, or with those dubs, or? Because Fredo knows why I'm asking. I know Fredo knows why I'm asking.
It sounds like there's something here. Well, all I know is that it was presented to us. I was handed master tapes I signed a deal with Conan, and we released some footage. So
now, in person, is he the most interesting man in the world?
Conan?
Yes.
I like Conan. We get along great. You know, it's funny because I'd say that there was a point in time where two of my closest wrestling friends, like wrestlers, were Conan and Vampiro, and this is when they were just completely.
This is when the two of them were on the outs at the time, huh?
Completely on the outs. And
you must have felt in a very interesting position.
Oh yeah, so it'd be awesome because I talked to one of them and they'd completely just have these great stories about the other one, and then I talked to the other one and they'd have completely great stories about the other one, and they both they both good friends with both of them, and I mean, look, I call Vamp to his face the silver-tongued devil, and he likes that. I'm like, dude, you have this reputation, dude. Dude, you're the silver-tongued devil. Like people just, I don't know what it is. Like that's your reputation. That you talk and that it's I don't know how to better describe that. I mean, obviously, like with the story going around right now, that's the first thing that popped into my head. I'm just like, wow, the stories that this guy can tell about his life, and or otherwise. But I absolutely love Vamp and I love Conan, and so it was interesting for a while though. Basically, them being two of my closest friends in the business.
In fact, that sounds like that would have made a great reality series in itself. The two of them just talking about each other and you being the intermediary and bringing them together.
A little scrawny white kid, the Mexican from Canada, and Conan. Awesome.
I would pay to see that. That would make a good pay-per-view in itself.
Maybe that should be the next pitch I go out with.
Are they friends or enemies right now?
I would say that they are on the same page as friends, but still, I don't think I'm giving anything away here. I will still talk to one of them, and they'll say, "Oh, so and so's gonna do this, this, and this," and then I'll say, "Oh, hey, I heard you're gonna do this, this, and this," and the other one's like, "What? Where'd that come from?" No. And
so you could almost call them. We can come up with a new term like frenemies or something like that.
It's not like that. It's not like now. It's not. It's just like oh, Vamp's going to be doing this, this, and this with AAA, or this or this, and then I'll say something to Vamp, and he's like, what? Or he'll tell me something, and I'll mention it to Carlos, and Carlos will be like, what? So
I love it.
But nothing malicious or mean or whatever. Just kind of like just they're friends, but I don't know that they're always on the same page.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I seriously think you should pitch it. Just when you pitch it, just say based on a random idea by Vandal Drummond.
Yeah, exactly.
No, actually, I wouldn't even do that. I'd do that. If you know them both, I would take full credit for that one. That would be big. and Spike would be a fool to turn that one down. Now, before we let you go, tell us about just the availability of your pay-per-view, the cost, and what folks who buy it are going to see.
So, real quick version of what we're doing now. So, Mass Republic started about a year ago. Ruben Zamora, the CEO of Mass Republic, had been making gear for a lot of the wrestlers, Conan and Psychosis, and a lot of the Chikara guys, and a lot of guys all over the place, and then started signing the stars of Mexico to licensing and merchandising deals for the U.S. Guys like Parka and Demon and Ray Senior and Hijo and Hoovy and all these guys. And there's a lot of things going on right now that are that hopefully come to fruition. That'll see merchandise of various kinds, from apparel to toys and whatnot, of these guys released. So, as part of kind of putting this whole Mass Republic company together, an opportunity came up to do a pay-per-view series, because nobody's ever done a regular running Lucha pay-per-view series. Nobody's ever done Lucha in HB, and there is a significant lack of pay-per-view options for the Hispanic community in America. Other than a big boxing pay-per-view every now and then, there's no real pay-per-views that cater to the millions and millions of Hispanics who have cable or have satellite and could be buying pay-per-view. So the cable companies and satellite companies really got behind the idea. I think much easier sell than any other wrestling concept I think that can be sold right now. And so For right now, we teamed up with the Perros Del Mal group out of Mexico, and did a shoot a few weeks ago where most of the footage that's on this pay-per-view came from, and then we've thrown in a few other goodies, including the XWA match between Parka and Sabu, and some other pieces that will be revealed as people watch the pay-per-view. And it's kind of set up more like a Monday Night Raw with full-length matches. There's storylines and angles that kind of get revealed in promos as the night goes on. There's definitely, there's 3 matches that are kind of set up for pay-per-view 2 by the time you get through pay-per-view 1. And it's 2 hours of kind of just straight nonstop action. You get great high-flying stuff with like Turbo and TJ Perkins and Mr. Aguila, and you get hardcore stuff with Parka and Sabu and Damien and Halloween and Supreme, and you get the U.S. or I guess worldwide television debut of Hijo de Rey Mysterio, and obviously, to people who just follow pro wrestling, that might not be, I guess, probably the majority of people listening to the show, that might not be the most exciting debut, but I think to a lot of the, Hispanics that hopefully see the advertising for it and, they'll be interested in the third generation Mysterio kind of taken to the ring. And the pay-per-views are all $20, so very reasonably priced. I really, I said in another interview that I did that I can totally admit that some of the wrestling stuff I've done, I wouldn't necessarily claim to be proud of or feel that maybe that was a great show and people are going to love it. I really do though feel that people are going to feel like they got their money's worth when they see this pay-per-view, and that when I finally saw when I saw the final cut of it, I was really proud of what we did. It was a unique situation because it was the first time I'd produced a show that I wasn't really producing. It was already, the Perros Del Mal show was already happening, and we got a little bit of a say. We booked TJ Perkins in there, and we brought Hijo in there, but other elements, like I didn't really have a say in who else was in that match with Hijo. It worked out pretty well. Happy with how things came out, but we just knew we wanted Hijo on the pay-per-view. And when it came to the TJ Perkins and Mr. Aguila match, we were able to book that one. And then when it came to the 5-way hardcore match, ironically, I wasn't the one to book Supreme. As much as we go back all these years, and he was pretty much the XPW King of the Death match. We were supposed to have Tommy Dreamer, and we were supposed to have Sabu, and those two fell through because of travel and because of dates and politics. But then they wanted Supreme, so they got Supreme. So all things considered, the kind of lack of control that we had, and the fact that the night before we shoot, we find out that they weren't really going to be shooting in HD because they didn't understand that that's what we needed. It got worked out, but one of my favorite quotes from Damien, who, for those that don't know, Damien's kind of like the number 2 guy at Perros Del Mal. Damien says, "Oh, it's not HD, but it still looks good." And in demand wasn't really going to go for, "Oh, dude, Damien said it looked good." Like, no worries. Like, we're don't sweat it. But it worked out. The guys at TVC Deportes saved our butts completely. The guys from Tercera Caída are awesome, and we are indebted to them for life. And it came off really well. And if you haven't seen it, there's a 12-minute preview of the pay-per-view, kind of like an old-school WWE style preview show on VivaLaLucha.com. And so, and I read Lucha Blog every day. I read Lucha World every day. So definitely after people watch the pay-per-view and watch the preview, give us feedback. I listen to the podcast, obviously. I want to know what you guys think. And the other cool thing is, because of the way this is happening, we have the ability, you guys have the ability, the fans that listen have the ability to kind of help us book some of the matches. I mean, to me, TJ Perkins and Mr. Aguila was booked because I wanted to see that match. I thought it was going to be a good match, and it was. It was a great match. But we want to know, like, what American stars that don't normally go to Mexico do you want to see in Mexico? What are the dream matches that, obviously, we're not going to be able to do matches of guys that are under a contract here or there, or aren't willing to travel to Mexico or whatever, but we're open to suggestions, really. And I would like to see at least one match on each pay-per-view kind of be a fan-driven match where it's like, it'd be awesome to see, so-and-so versus so-and-so, and you're not going to see that anywhere else. You're probably never again at this point going to see TJ versus Aguila, because as much as we had planned to do them on the second pay-per-view. With Aguilar going back to CMLL, it's not going to happen. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get people's reactions to it. Sometimes when we do an XCW show, or even there were moments at WSX where I was a little nervous about people's reactions and kind of went on to the message boards and the websites with like one eye kind of shut, like I don't know if I want to read this, but I'm really excited about this. And
well,
I really
think when you really hit upon something is when you get a slew of people who love it and a slew of people who hate it. As long as you have a slew of people who are paying attention to it, I think that's key, personally. I want to thank you, Kevin, for coming on with us, and I hope you'll be up to make another appearance. We really enjoyed hearing your unique story, and could ask you 1,000 more questions, but we have to get on to a few other things.
Absolutely.
I want to say, though, that I know there is one match that I'll pay for, and you don't even have to book it, because hearing you say you have access to the X-Law tapes, I want to see the Skida versus Negro Navarro match.
All right. Well, I'm actually physically writing that down right now.
From X.
They had a match from X-Law, and I know it was taped, and I think Fredo has talked in the past. I think you've talked in the past about efforts to get X-Law tapes and how they were. It was not the most convenient thing in the world.
Well, I mean, when you can get like 400 Japanese tapes at the same price, it's kind of hard to
And you got a phone call from Mike Tenay.
Yeah, and the phone call. I mean, come on, how can you? That's priceless.
How can you beat that?
Yeah.
I mean, when you picked up the phone, did you say, "We know who this is"?
No, he wasn't doing that back then, though.
No, he had his call waiting, so he didn't take the call. Kevin, we'd love to have you back on soon again if we could.
Absolutely.
And I hope you and I can meet up sometime when Dan Farron is present, so we can double team him, shame him for not being here tonight. And good.
Oh, so Dan Farron would be the lucky Pierre.
That's right. Dan Farron would be the lucky Pierre in that case, right in the middle, taking it and giving it.
All right. Well, it sounds like fun. All right.
Okay. Thank you again, Kevin, and you take care, and we hope to talk to you really soon.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Oh God, I just mortified Kevin Kleinrock.
I think he enjoyed your presence. The Bixie Demon. There's nothing like a phone call from the Bixie Demon.
Oh, thank you.
And and DR LUCH, we have not had you on for a while. Dr. Lucha, where have you been?
Writing about the most interesting man in the world.
I have been.
I'm never going to lay off you on that. Ever.
I have been making plans for a certain reunion in October.
That's right, and we have to set up a get-together time to talk that reunion over, and I think that reunion has lots of potential. And I do think somehow, somewhere, someplace, we do have to get Fizzy in there, in your corner, and me somehow, whether it's in the ring. If we can't get it in the ring, then we have to empty a room, and Physical and I will wrestle in an apartment house wrestling match.
Let's put it this way. I haven't shaved my hair. I haven't cut my hair all year in anticipation for what might happen.
Oh, that's sweet. We have something going. Okay, this is going to be the next big pay-per-view, Apartment House Wrestling featuring Physical Nuclear and Lucky Pierre. I'm going to have to get on the roids or something like that to get myself a little cut. I'm 48. I'm getting a little chubbier.
You know what I wanted to know from Kevin, but I didn't get to ask?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Fredo.
I want to know what's going to happen with Perro Aguayo now that he's probably going to go to AAA,
That's right. I guess that's something we should talk about briefly, especially since we have Dr. Lucha here and we have Bix. I guess that's pretty much some big breaking news is that Perro Aguayo is not just doing the Perros Del Mal gig anymore. Tell us what's up.
Why should he doing that?
We don't completely know what. By the way, is this coming through okay on the speakerphone?
Yes, you sound wonderful.
Yes, actually.
Oh, okay, good, because I'm trying to jinx the Celtics any way I can here. Sorry,
Let's put it this
Carlos.
way, Steve, if you were doing phone sex, I would be in ecstasy right now.
Fredo, Kobe had a good third quarter, huh?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Oh, you're not watching it?
Of course,
I'm
what's up with Perro Aguayo is much more important than anything that could happen with basketball.
Yeah. I could go into baseball if you want. Perro is the leader of a promotion that's dying. Their TV is drawing terrible ratings on a third-rate network.
Hey, Dan, Steve, you should have brought this up during Kevin's interview.
Well, you're the co-host. You're probably there designing the June issue of Lucha World Monthly, the greatest new internet wrestling magazine out there.
You should have called.
You have to remember, Fredo doesn't talk when it's not just him and Kurt.
That could be the handle of the show.
Bix,
when Vandal talks, Fredo listens.
Hey, Bix, I don't talk when Kurt. It's just me and Kurt, Usually just Kurt talking and me just like
Okay, now we're like the four Marx Brothers, except Harpo is speaking. Perro
Aguayo has been AAA, and he contacted each other about doing a run-in angle months ago. Never happened, in large part because Televisa didn't. They were trying to get on Televisa, and Televisa was unhappy with the fact that, I don't want these two different programs that we're considering working together. And then after they saw the first show of Perros Del Mal, they never let another show air because the production quality was so bad. And Perros, the promotion's not making any money, so Perro has contacted AAA about doing an invasion angle. And since AAA is invading IWRG right now, and ex-AAA guys are invading CMLL, it looks like this is the year of the invasion in Mexico.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But it's not a certainty yet that he'll come in because his asking price is so high.
And this is just after Kevin was talking about NWO knockoffs, too.
Whoever gets, Perro is one of the few people who's got the charisma to just turn and really create a big attendance boost. Not quite as big as Lucky Pierre, but almost as big.
Exactly. Which will, in fact, we're going to get into that more later. But these past few years with the Perros Del Mal promotion, I was pulling my hair out because I thought these are like some of his prime years, and I remember a friend of Dave Meltzer's, I can't remember who, compared his charisma and his ring presence with the fans to Ray Stevens, which is a high compliment, and I'm inclined to agree. And I thought, man, his prime years wasting away in a 2-bit promotion that is not going to go anywhere. And so I take this as wonderful news. How about...
He does know that, but on the dates he does run, he gets the line as the promoter, and you know how promotions work. That Dan Farron guy will tell you. The promoters make the lion's share of the dough anyway. So he was the one person that wasn't really hurting. Everybody else was hurting, but...
Gotcha.
Well, having him back on my TV makes me happy.
I am in agreement.
Take you to the basketball game and root for the Lakers.
In fact, I know. Question: the three of you. Dave Bix just said happy to have him back on his TV, which I am in agreement with. The three of you, how do you feel about Perros' return to AAA?
I love it. I generally, just for whatever reason, have been following, the YouTube stuff as much. Just, and now we don't get LATV here anymore, so I can't even get any CMLL at all on regular TV. So I was really just sticking with AAA, and it was frustrating because, even though CMLL has changed a lot, that one Perro Aguayo Jr. versus Universo Dos Mil match from a few years ago, I remember loving. That was like my match of the year that year. Do you remember the one I'm talking about, where Universo beats him up right in front of Perro Sr.?
I'm ashamed to say I did not see that. Now, Fredo, you probably saw it, right?
Come on, Kurt. You haven't seen anything. Come on.
You know me, Fredo.
But anyway,
not only I told it.
That's like 5 years that you haven't seen anything, Kurt. Come on.
Yeah, that much was. Oh, Jesus, that was almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, Kurt hasn't been watching wrestling.
But that's why
I have to find my copy.
Kurt, if you watched it this weekend, hey, Universo Dos Mil would be back, and Perro Aguayo would be back. It would be like you never left.
Oh, dear. Okay, well, my DVR is going to be set. I'm awaiting his return. And I must say, in AAA, Dr. Wagner and Pimpinela are the most awesome combination, almost as awesome as Pimpinela and Gato Everready. You can't have it all, but it's bitchin'. And where do we go?
The big match next month is happening at the Los Angeles Convention Center on June 17th. Dr. Wagner Jr. and Silver King, I think, are facing Parka and somebody else, and the winner gets to be the cover star of the video game. Now that's a stipulation that only can happen in Lucha Libre.
Stipulation match. I love it.
Yeah, when is AAA El Videojuego coming out anyway?
It's supposed to come out on 8, 9, 10.
Well,
so we're hoping it's just a couple of months away, and in fact, you know, they're going to be showing it at Triple E in 2 weeks.
Triple E?
E3.
There you go.
Now,
Triple A, Triple E. I'm sorry, I was doing my Lucha Libre announcing.
Well, I was amazed that you actually said AAA earlier. I thought I was the only person who still occasionally said AAA.
On the
I like that. I never heard anybody say AAA.
At least in my head sometimes, I still like read it as AAA.
All I remember is that when AAA first started, somebody at Cal State LA show interviewed Peralta Morgan, and this kid only spoke English, so he tape recorded the whole thing and asked if I could have a friend of mine who spoke Spanish to translate it. And one of the questions was to Peralta Morgan, do you plan to go to AAA? And my friend, God bless him, had the foresight to translate the answer incorrectly and say, no, because I really don't know much about getting keys out of locked cars and changing tires. And then the person called me up and asked me, that was a rib, wasn't it? And I must say he was a good sport about it, too. Well, DR LUCH, while you were in Vegas boozing it up and going to strip clubs, and
of which there are pictures on the internet.
Oh God! You went to that thing?
I'm surfing. I'm going to be surfing tonight.
There's scary stuff. You have to go through page 50 to page 58 or 59 of this thread on the board.
Lucky Pierre made his comeback, wrestled Fanboy. So we were in two different places, but doing something very common. You were at strip clubs, and Lucky Pierre was stripping.
And now the next show is July 31st, and I can't come to it either.
Why can't you come to that one?
I'm going to a wedding.
Oh, wedding.
Oh, Lord. Is it the wedding of a wrestler?
Not mine, mind you.
I was going to say, is it the wedding of a wrestler?
No.
Good, because I'd save you a lot of time to say don't go, because it will break up anyways if it's a wedding of a wrestler. Well, I don't even know if Lucky Pierre is booked on the show for the 31st. So,
is the Mummian booked?
The Mummian, yes, we have to book a Mummian. Well, that's another thing we'll have to put on the reunion show when we get together in October.
Oh yeah, I couldn't remember. Were there three things that I somehow came up with, or was it just Mummian and Kayfabe Cops?
Mummian and Kayfabe Cop. Those were epiphanies. Those were.
Was there a third one though? I feel like there was a third one.
Well, you know what? The best way to check that one out is to go to the last episode of Slam and Stan. I've been like this all night.
Was
that last time, or was that the one before?
I think it was last time. Kurt, why do you do these podcasts when you stay up on Wednesday night till like 6 in the morning?
Well, in fact, that's something I've had to bring up, guys. I have been having this strange identity crisis lately. Almost every night, I've been falling asleep for the night. I've been falling asleep by 9 or 10 o'clock. And while I must say I feel energized for the next work day, it's a foreign feeling to me. I credit it to all the running I'm doing. I've been running a lot more than I used to, and I've been sleeping a lot more soundly, and it's wonderful, but I've been a night owl ever since I was an infant, and I'm having a major identity crisis here.
Well, that's one thing I can tell you about that convention. We had 45 people there, and there were 44 night owls and one morning person. You can take a guess who the morning person was.
Mr. Meltzer?
No, me. I felt like I was on another planet by about 1 or 2 in the morning.
Well, I was going to say, though, Dave Meltzer doesn't sleep.
Dave Meltzer, he's got
Oh, yeah, he sleeps. I saw him sleep.
In fact, I heard on the last
Why? Were you in bed with him?
No, he conked out a couple times.
Well, I think Dave Meltzer is able to function without sleep.
But then he gets up. He doesn't need much sleep anyway. He has a lot of natural energy.
It's funny because I heard about him falling asleep during the Dream Show, because I'll never forget the one time that we all took him to Tijuana back in, I think it was 1990. He had, I think, just gotten off the plane from Japan. We drove to Tijuana. There's a really lackluster show. That was where he first met Conan. And
Mil Mascaras was 44 at the time?
That's right. Well, that was when Dave and I had the same hairdo, and Carlos initially thought it was my brother, and I said, yeah, we're Los Gemelos Diablo. And then I asked him, doesn't Dave remind you of Emilio Charles Jr.? Which I thought Dave had an uncanny
He kind of does.
He does, doesn't he?
Wow. I never thought of that before, and right now I am both amused and frightened.
I know, isn't that amazing? Maybe there is a story to be told. Maybe there's a scandal we have not uncovered yet. But then we drove back, and I remember it was Greg Galato had some total kick-ass tapes to show, and Dave starts watching them, and I don't think it was 5 minutes till he was passed out cold on our couch. And the rest of us were being loud and rowdy and enjoying all the tapes we were watching, and he didn't stir. He was out. He was lucky he was not amongst pranksters, because there would be some good Dave Meltzer stories to pass along 20 years later. Well, I hate to wrap this up so quickly, because it's been so long since we've had the four of us together.
Hey, Kurt, I thought we were going to be done like at 45 minutes when you told me Dan was going to call in.
That's right. Yes, Dan, that sneaky bastard no-showing on us.
Kevin kept talking, man. I was like, whoa.
He's energetic. I was amazed. I mean, and I could have kept, the only reason I wound it up early is because I could have kept listening to him until the 2-hour mark. Yeah. But I'm jazzed that the four of us are the Los Cuatro Rudos, the originals, are back together again on Slammin' Stan. And I was wondering, Bix and DR LUCH, can we have you back in 2 weeks, you guys?
Yes, I suppose. I was on the phone earlier. I would have called in sooner, but I want to try to stretch it out. I want you to try to stretch it out to the 2 hours.
Cool. And I normally would, but I have a resolve to get some trivial things done tonight, and I haven't gotten an answer from you though yet, DR LUCH. 2 weeks?
Only if the new issue of Lucha World magazine, which everybody should go read, with its famous, soon-to-be famous cover, is out and available for reading.
It should be out by then, actually.
Oh, by the way, apparently
it's a great thing, Alfredo.
Thanks.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at this yet. But by the way, the big newsstand at Penn Station now has an oddly large amount of copies of, I guess technically the name is Record for Sale, the Lucha magazine.
Yeah.
I don't know how that magazine. It's independent of the promotions, and it has a lot of stuff even I didn't know.
Ooh! Could you pick me up a copy, Bix?
If I'm back,
you could buy it first in Soto.
You know what, Steve? You probably didn't hear this. On the way back home from
the All Nation Center isn't there anymore.
Exactly.
After
the Chat Force show, I mentioned this earlier. We drove down Soto, and Fredo Physico and myself, and as we went past First and Soto, the first thing we knew is that both newsstands were bulldozed. And then as we went up the street, the All Nation Center has been razed and has been replaced by Social Security Administration building.
See what happens when you put a metro line in?
That blew us away too, that metro line there. We didn't even know it went that far. And so it was the end of an era. And you know what, I think pretty soon we'll have to talk a little, one of the upcoming shows we'll all have to talk about All Nation Center a little bit, because there were some great local lucha memories there.
Yes, I see Punky Boy is back in action.
Yes, I want to know if it's the same one. He's the one who pronounced my name the best when he was a ring announcer. He called me Vandal Drummond, and it don't get more bitchin' than that, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, that reminds me. I have to. Speaking of those local luchadors, this has been like seeping in my brain for like the past decade plus. Who was Principe Joel, and why was he always like the one non-star in all those matches?
Principe Joel was somebody who actually started back in the Hadco Plaza days. I first saw Principe Joel when he was a slightly tubby guy who was an okay wrestler. I first saw him at Hadco Plaza in a hair versus hair match against a guy named Jesse Garcia, who is one of the best wrestlers you will never hear of. Jesse Garcia was a really, really excellent technical wrestler, a good technico, and I have a hunch I don't know this, I should ask around guys like Khayyam and stuff, but I have a hunch he had something to do with the Hadco Plaza promotion having such a solid run, because I to this day say that Hadco Plaza was an indie promotion ahead of its time, heads above almost, I'll go as far to say heads above any indie promotion I've ever seen. Well-disciplined wrestlers, well-talented wrestlers. But back to Principe Joel, it was a hair versus hair match which Principe Joel dropped his hair to Jesse Garcia. And I didn't hear of him again until I started getting involved, and by then he was much more muscular and on the juice. He was a really, really good worker, very talented, and I suspect, this is just my hunch, I don't know for a fact, he did have a bit of an ego and attitude problem that may have been the reason he didn't go much further, or maybe he was just kind of content being on the indie scene. I do know of a situation that Superboy told me about where Superboy was on the opposing team and Principe tried to get smart with one of the American wrestlers, and Superboy tagged in and gave him a few what-fors, and Superboy is very deceiving looking. He's a lot tougher than he looks. So I guess sometimes Joel wanted to kind of show off what a good shooter he was, kind of in the old school of Cesar Sando, which in my opinion is just not cool when you're doing a match in front of an audience, especially a main event. Always seemed like a nice guy to me. Seemed, and unusually good worker. I remember seeing a match where he wrestled Super Astro for one of the local titles, and I would go as far to say that was a 5-star match, and Joel went over clean in that match. And I hear he was involved in a serious automobile accident several years ago, and I don't think has wrestled since. I think he's okay. I think he can walk and everything, but I think his wrestling days might be over. But one of those talented wrestlers that will probably just not even be a footnote in the history books. But actually, you bringing him up made me think again about Jesse Garcia. Jesse Garcia is somebody who I would, even if it is just a footnote, I'd love just a few photos of him to somehow make the rounds and just mention of him. Apparently, in the early 80s sometimes, he found religion and renounced everything, including wrestling, and never have heard from him again. And something that's kind of a poetic parallel is Hadco Plaza. The reason you have not seen any wrestling there in over 25 years is because a religious institution bought the place. And
that happens with every indie wrestling venue.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And I guess they don't want any wrestling shows there. I guess people have actually approached them. I drove by the place about 2 years ago, and it was still called Hadco Plaza, but, definitely is a church of some kind. In fact, I know I bring up Hadco Plaza in small spurts here and there. Maybe that's another thing we'll have to touch upon in greater detail one of these days.
You know what I was thinking during the early part of the show, Kurt? talking about Dr. Jerry Graham?
Yes.
I was wondering how many drinks DR LUCH had. Well, he's playing the drinking game, isn't he?
Were you playing a drinking game, DR LUCH?
No, we were just having drinks a la the regular stiffs in Las Vegas. It was a.
I think Steve's distracted now. I don't think he knows what we're talking about now.
I don't. No, I didn't play a drinking game. I did have a few drinks because sometimes I had to cut off a little bit because I was the transportation for somebody back.
Ah, very wise man.
I didn't want to drive drunk, especially considering, driving down the strip in Las Vegas drunk is not exactly a wise idea.
Yeah,
I just don't get why you'd willingly spend time with members of the Figure 4 message board.
I will say this, that's the most fun I have had in a long time.
Well, maybe
I really enjoyed myself. There were some people there.
Other three-quarters
I don't hang on the board, so I didn't know a lot of them before I got there.
Well, maybe that means the other three-quarters.
It was really a lot of fun, and there were some, I didn't hang around with everybody all the time. There were too many people to get to know all of them really closely. But the ones I spent the time with, I really enjoyed.
Well, maybe
I'd like to enjoy time with Alvarez's girlfriend.
Oh no, she was with Brian most of the way, and Vinny had someone there, and a couple other people had someone there, and they were all really nice people, and
I didn't mean that to sound as terrible as it came out.
Well, maybe that's the three of us on the of the Rudos will have to try to make it out there next year.
Dear God, no way.
Oh, come on. It'd be an adventure.
I don't want to go to an MMA thing, man. I'm not.
I'd rather go to Cauliflower Alley.
That would be cool. Well, maybe we'll have to.
Maybe we'll try. Maybe next year I'll try to do it. But since I wasn't able to do this year, but no, I am not going to the Figure 4 convention.
Well, on that note, guys, I do have to wrap it up, and I want to. It's great having the four of us back again. And we will all see each other in 2 weeks. A week from next Thursday, Slammin' Stan will return. And just want to remind you, anybody out there walking through Southern California...
I have to interrupt you before you go. I have to interrupt the spiel because I just wanted to bring one thing up because it's going to make you very happy.
Yes.
That I took out from the library a book about the art of what's his name? Your friend that did Love and Rockets.
Gilbert Hernandez?
No, the other one.
Jamie Hernandez.
Yes.
That does make me happy. And I expect you to give me feedback.
I'm going to probably start looking at it over the next couple of days. But
let me know.
Big hardcover book talking about his influences, reprinting stuff.
His influences is the most interesting thing.
They show like a panel from an Archie comic and that inspired him and all that.
He has a lot of his both he and Gilbert's, both their influences are amazing.
I think you guys are going to get cut off.
Well, we're not.
So we've got 10 more minutes.
Powder time.
You guys got 12
I'm
minutes.
tapping out, baby dolls.
You guys got 12 minutes.
There's still 2 more minutes in the Lakers game. We can keep going till that's done.
So until a week from Thursday, ladies and gentlemen, if you're walking through Southern California and you see a bright light shooting across the sky, it is not a shooting star. No way, Daddy-O. It is a heavenly handful of Moncel's powder.
Powder.
Right on. Sweet dreams, my babies. See you in 2 weeks, Sugar Plums. Take care.